Hello students, in our last video we discussed the theory of how the game works, and now I'm going to show you some of the code, and we're going to chunk this up into a series of videos, so I'm just going to try and go as quickly as I can. Um, each of these objects has its own code, so I'm just going to start with the frog for this video and probably only do about half of the code of the frog for this video. In the very beginning, when the green flag is clicked, we switch to a specific costume. You can see I have two costumes here, the kind of sitting costume and the jumping costume. I've removed the frog's hat just because it was complicating movement through the maze, and set the rotation style to left right so that it doesn't go upside down as he moves through the maze, and then set him to glide to the starting location. And I have a starting location somewhere around here. That's just totally random. You can start your frog wherever. So you can see here when I click the green flag, the frog immediately slides to that location. Okay, and so that's my starting code. And then here I've got the left arrow and the right arrow and the up arrow and the down arrow and the code for each of those. So just to explain really quickly, go left if you can just simply means you have to check to make sure it's not touching yellow. So yellow is the color that I built all around the edges and also in the maze in the parts and pieces. So if it's not touching yellow, then allow it to point in the left direction, because this is the script for the left arrow key has been pressed on the keyboard. So point in that direction. By the way, if you click on this, you can see you can move the arrow in whichever direction you need to. So this is the direction that we want it to go, which just happens to be -90. Then we're going to change X by -12. So right now my speed is set to 12, and negative simply means in that direction. So this is negative and that is positive. So we want it to move -12, and then a next costume just simply makes it run. And so if I click the left arrow right now, you can see it's moved to the next costume and it's moved over by 12 and it's pointing in that direction. And if I move it one more, then it switches back to the other costume. And so I can keep going that next costume, next costume, next costume, next costume. And it's just moving slowly across. And then if I switch to the other arrow, which would be the right arrow, it's going to point in this direction. So you can see it's pointing in that direction. It's going to change by +12 and it's going to switch to the next costume. So if I click the arrow now, I click it once, he's turned around and changed costumes and moved all in one click. So you can see him just running across. What I have here is the bottom part of the code is if it goes too far. So if it gets to the point where it's actually touching yellow, then I want it to back up. So in this case, the good move was a -12. So to back up, which would be a bad move, so we've made it move too far, so we back up exactly the same amount, but in the opposite direction. So if this was negative, then this is positive. And I'm going to switch the costume so that it's the sitting position. So if I move here, you can see this is the left arrow. And by the way, every time there's a kind of a yellow line that comes around it, so it makes it look like it's jumping out at you. So now I keep on clicking. I hope you can hear me keeping on clicking, but it's not moving anymore. And what's happening is it's so fast that you can't even see it, but it actually is not touching. So it does this move, then it realizes it's touching and it moves back and changes to the sitting costume. And it's doing that so fast, you don't even see it. It's literally faster than your eye. So if I click the left arrow again, it's running through all of this code and moving back. So it's moving in the forward direction 12, moving back 12, and then changing back to the costume. And the same thing happens with the right. So if I go all the way across to the right area, and I'm going to get stuck at the end. And you can see that it won't let me go beyond. And that's what this code is doing. So the up arrow and the down arrow also work exactly the same. For some reason, I didn't put in a point in direction. And probably the only reason for that is that we need some more costumes here for it to go up and down, because the costumes would have to look different. So if somebody wants to kind of edit those or add those costumes, that would be great. Or maybe you can find a sprite that already has those costumes in place. But for the up arrow, it's again changing Y by +12. And then if you're touching a yellow, then back up because you've gone too far, the exact same amount just in the negative, and switch to the sitting position. And so it's exactly the same thing for the down. So if you're not touching yellow, go down. But then now if you've gone too far and you are touching yellow, back up. And that's essentially the code. Okay, so that's a quick video about going down and backing up. And in our next video, I'm going to show you about teleporting. But for now, we were just talking about the actual movement.